Jake Morrison held his daughter Emma's small hand as they walked through the crowded spaceport. The metal floors shook under their feet from the constant movement of ships taking off and landing. People rushed past them carrying bags and crying, "Children." The air smelled like fuel and fear. Emma looked up at her father with big brown eyes. She was only 6 years old, but she could feel something was very wrong. Her father's face looked worried, and his hand was shaking a little as he held hers. She squeezed his fingers tighter. "Daddy, where are we going?" Emma asked in her small voice. Jake knelt down to her level and tried to smile. "We're going on a big adventure, sweetheart. You're going to see the stars up close." The truth was much worse than any adventure story. 3 days ago, huge alien ships had appeared in Earth's sky. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They had given all humans exactly 72 hours to leave Earth forever. After that, they would destroy everything on the planet to make room for their own people. Most of the evacuation ships had already left. They were packed full of families trying to escape to the human colonies in space. Jake and Emma had been waiting for 3 days to get on any ship that had room. They had slept on the cold floor of the spaceport and eaten nothing but emergency food bars. Jake looked at the departure board on the wall. Only one ship was left. The transport ship, New Hope, would be the last one to leave Earth. Captain Paul. Carter was an old military man who had volunteered to stay until the very end to help as many people as possible. They joined the long line of people waiting to board. Jake counted the people in front of them. There were families with crying babies, old people with walking sticks, and young couples holding each other tight. Everyone looked scared and tired. The line moved slowly. Jake could hear Captain Carter's voice over the speakers. "Please move quickly and only bring what you can carry. We have limited space and time." As they got closer to the ship, Jake could see the captain checking names on his list. The man's face looked grim. He was shaking his head more and more often as people reached the front of the line. When there were only 10 people left in front of them, Captain Carter made an announcement that made Jake's heart stop. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to inform you that we have exactly 1 seat left on this transport. 1 seat only." The crowd began to panic. People started shouting and pushing. Some families began arguing about who should take the last seat. Jake heard a woman crying behind him. A man was begging the captain to make more room somehow. Jake looked down at Emma. She was holding her small backpack with both arms. Inside were her favorite stuffed animal, some clothes, and a picture of Jake and her mother who had died 2 years ago. Emma didn't understand what was happening, but she could see the fear in everyone's faces. The line moved forward one more time. Now Jake and Emma were next. Captain Carter looked at Jake with sad eyes. "I'm sorry, son. I can only take one of you." Jake's mind raced. He knew that no more ships were coming. The aliens had made that very clear. Anyone left on Earth when the 72 hours ended would die. He looked at the other families around him. They were all in the same terrible situation. Emma tugged on his jacket. "Daddy, what's wrong? Why does everyone look sad?" Jake knelt down again and pulled Emma close to him. He could smell her strawberry shampoo and feel her small arms around his neck. His heart was breaking, but he knew what he had to do. "Emma, remember what I told you about being brave?" Jake whispered in her ear. She nodded against his shoulder. "I need you to be very brave right now. You're going to go on this big spaceship and see amazing things. There will be nice people there who will take care of you." Emma pulled back and looked at his face. "But what about you, Daddy?" Jake forced himself to smile, even though he wanted to cry. "Daddy is going to catch the next ship. I'll meet you at the new place where we're all going to live." It was a lie, and Jake knew it. There was no next ship, but he couldn't tell his 6-year-old daughter that he was about to die so she could live. He picked Emma up and carried her to Captain Carter. The captain understood immediately what Jake was doing. The older man's eyes filled with tears. "Sir, are you sure about this?" the captain asked quietly. Jake nodded. "Take care of her, please." He placed Emma in the captain's arms. She started to cry and reach for her father. "Daddy, no, I want to stay with you." Jake touched her face gently. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky, Emma. Remember that always. Be good and listen to the nice captain." Captain Carter carried Emma toward the ship's entrance. She was crying loudly now and calling for her father. Jake followed them to the doorway, but he could not go inside. "I'll watch over her personally," Captain Carter promised Jake. "She'll be safe." Jake watched as they sealed the ship's door. Through the small window, he could see Emma's face pressed against the glass. Her tears were making tracks down her cheeks. She was mouthing the word "Daddy" over and over. The engine started up with a loud roar. Jake stood on the platform and waved at his daughter until the ship lifted off the ground. It rose higher and higher until it was just a small dot of light against the dark sky. Then it was gone. Jake was alone on the empty platform. Around him, the few remaining people were sitting on the ground or walking away slowly. Everyone knew the truth now. They were all going to die in less than 24 hours when the aliens destroyed Earth. But Jake didn't feel sorry for himself. Emma was safe. She was alive and flying toward a new world where she could grow up. That was all that mattered to him. He had done what any father would do. He had saved his child. Jake walked out of the spaceport and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, among all those stars, his little girl was beginning a new life. He smiled for the first time in days and whispered to the darkness, "Goodbye, Emma. Daddy loves you." The transport ship New Hope moved through space toward the Andorian neutral zone. Captain Paul Carter checked the ship's course from the bridge. They had been traveling for 3 days now and would reach their destination in 2 more days. The ship carried 847 human refugees from Earth, all heading to new homes in the outer colonies. But Captain Carter was worried about one passenger in particular. Emma Morrison sat in her assigned seat in the passenger area. She had not eaten anything since the first day of the journey. Dr. Lisa Hayes, the ship's medical officer, had tried everything she could think of. She offered Emma different foods, played games with her, and even found some children's movies to show on the small screen. Nothing worked. Emma just sat quietly and stared out the window at the stars. Sometimes she would take out a piece of paper and draw pictures with the crayons Dr. Hayes had given her. But she always drew the same thing, over and over, a man waving goodbye. "She's drawn her father at least 50 times, Dr. Hayes told Captain Carter. "I've never seen a child this young handle separation trauma so badly." Captain Carter looked through the medical reports. Emma's body was starting to shut down from not eating. Her temperature was too low and she was getting weaker every hour. If something didn't change soon, she might not survive the journey. "What about the other children on the ship?" the captain asked. "Can any of them help her feel better?" Dr. Hayes shook her head. "I've tried that too. She won't talk to anyone. She just keeps asking when her daddy is coming to get her, Captain." Carter made a decision that surprised everyone on his crew. He went to the ship's communication room and sent a message to the Zephyrian Empire's command fleet. It was a dangerous thing to do. The aliens had agreed to let human ships pass through their space, but they hadn't offered to help with any problems. The message was simple. Request medical assistance for human child suffering severe separation trauma. Child may not survive. Journey without intervention. The message traveled through space at the speed of light. It reached the massive Zephyrian flagship Stellar Dominion, while Empress Kyara Vex was having her daily meeting with her commanders. The Empress was tall and powerful-looking, with skin that looked like platinum metal and bright purple eyes. She had ruled the Zephyrian Empire for over 200 years. In that time, she had conquered dozens of planets and moved millions of creatures from their homes to make room for her people. Commander Zek Thorne brought the message to her attention. He was a large alien, with 4 arms and a voice like grinding metal. "Your Magnificence, One of the human transport ships is requesting medical help. Should we ignore it? Empress Kyara Vex read the message carefully. She had seen thousands of species relocated during her reign. Most of them accepted their fate quietly or fought briefly before giving up. But humans had been different. They had fought longer and harder than expected. Some of their military tactics had actually impressed. Her, a human child separated from her parent, the Empress said slowly. Tell me more about this transport ship. Commander Thorne pulled up the ship's information on his screen. The vessel New Hope carries 847 refugees. The child in question is Emma Morrison, age 6. Her father, Jake Morrison, gave up his seat so she could escape Earth. The Empress's purple eyes grew brighter. That name sounded familiar. She ordered her computer system to search for information about Jake Morrison. What she found made her very interested. Jake Morrison had been a military engineer before the invasion. He had designed several defensive systems that had caused serious problems for Zephyrian forces. His barrier shields had protected human cities for weeks, longer than expected. His communication jammers had disrupted Zephyrian battle plans. But more importantly, Jake Morrison had made a choice that the Empress found fascinating. He had given up his own life to save his child. Show me the child's current condition, the Empress commanded. The ship's sensors were powerful enough to scan inside the human transport. On her screen, the Empress could see Emma Morrison sitting alone in her seat. The little girl was drawing another picture of her father. Her small body looked weak and sick. In my 200 years of rule, I have relocated 47 different species, the Empress said to Commander Thorne. I have seen parents abandon their children to save themselves. I have seen children sacrifice their parents for food. But I have never seen a parent choose certain death over uncertain safety for their offspring. Commander Thorne looked confused. Your Magnificence, this behavior troubles you? The Empress studied the image of Emma Morrison on her screen. The child had finished her drawing and was now holding it against the window, as if she was showing it to the stars. It doesn't trouble me, Commander. It intrigues me. This Jake Morrison knew he would die if he stayed on Earth. Our sterilization protocols were very clear, yet he chose to remain behind rather than take his daughter's place on the transport. She stood up from her command chair and walked to the large window that showed the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere out there, Earth was already a dead planet. The Zephyrian sterilization beams had destroyed all life on the surface exactly 72 hours after the evacuation deadline. Your Magnificence, the human is dead, Commander Thorne pointed out. The father cannot help his child now. Empress Kyara Vex turned around slowly. Her purple eyes were glowing with an idea that would shock her entire command staff. Perhaps he can, Commander. Perhaps he can. She walked back to her command chair and activated the communication system. Her voice filled the bridge of the New Hope within seconds. Captain Paul Carter of the human transport New Hope, this is Empress Kyara Vex of the Zephyrian Empire. I have received your request for medical assistance. Captain Carter nearly fell out of his chair. He had expected a simple yes or no answer, not a personal response from the most powerful being in this part of the galaxy. Your Imperial Magnificence, he stammered. Thank you for responding to our message. Tell me about this child, Captain. Tell me about Emma Morrison and her father. Captain Carter wasn't sure what to say. He told the Empress about Jake Morrison's sacrifice and Emma's condition. He explained how the little girl kept drawing pictures and asking for her father. She believes he's coming for her, Captain Carter said, even though she saw him stay behind on Earth. There was silence for a long moment. Then the Empress spoke again, and her words changed everything. Captain Carter, you will alter your course immediately. Bring your ship to dock with my flagship. I wish to see this child who draws pictures of hope in the face of certain loss. Captain Carter looked at his crew with wide eyes. No human had ever been invited aboard a Zephyrian ship, especially not the Empress's personal flagship. Your Magnificence, may I ask why? The Empress's voice carried a strange tone that Commander Thorne had never heard before. It almost sounded like curiosity mixed with respect. "Because, Captain, this child's father has taught me something about your species that I did not understand before, and I believe that understanding may be very important indeed." Empress Kiara Vex stood in her private chambers aboard the flagship Stellar Dominion. Through the massive windows, she could see the human transport ship New Hope docked to her vessel. For the first time in decades, she felt something she couldn't quite identify. It might have been curiosity or perhaps something deeper. She had spent the last 2 hours reviewing every piece of information about Jake Morrison. His military record showed a man who cared more about protecting people than following orders. His personal file revealed a widower who had raised his daughter alone after his wife died in a mining accident. His psychological profile described someone who put family above everything else. Commander Zek Thorne entered the chamber and bowed his four-armed salute. "Your Magnificence, the human child has been brought aboard as you requested. She is in the medical bay with Dr. Kess," the Empress nodded. "And her condition? Deteriorating rapidly. Dr. Kess believes she may have only days left if her trauma continues untreated." The Empress walked to her command console and activated a screen showing the medical bay. Emma Morrison lay on a bed that was far too large for her small body. The Zephyrian medical equipment had been adjusted for human physiology, but the child looked tiny and fragile, surrounded by all the alien technology. Dr. Kess was a gentle Zephyrian healer with silver scales and kind yellow eyes. She was trying to coax Emma to drink some nutritional fluid, but the little girl just stared at the ceiling and clutched her drawings. "She keeps asking for her father," Dr. Kess reported through the communication system. "I've explained that he cannot come, but she doesn't seem to understand." The Empress studied Emma's drawings on another screen. Each one showed the same scene: a man standing alone, waving at a ship flying away. The pictures were simple, but somehow they captured something powerful about loss and hope. "Commander Thorne," the Empress said suddenly, "how long ago did we complete the sterilization of Earth?" 17 hours ago, Your Magnificence. The planet is now completely lifeless." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to face her commander with an expression that made him step backward. "You're wrong, Commander. Your Magnificence. Earth is not completely lifeless. Our sensors showed that some humans chose to remain behind rather than evacuate. They knew they would die, but they stayed anyway." Commander Thorne checked his datapad quickly. "That's correct, Your Magnificence. Our estimates suggest that approximately 200 humans remained on the planet when the sterilization began. Then our sterilization was incomplete." Commander Thorne's 4 eyes widened in shock. "Your Magnificence, that's impossible. Our plasma bombardment destroyed all organic matter on the planet's surface. Nothing could have survived." The Empress walked to her private communication console and began typing commands that made Commander Thorne even more confused. "I want a full scan of Earth's surface. Look for any signs of life, no matter how small. Check underground areas, cave systems, abandoned structures. If any humans survived the initial bombardment, I want to know about it. Your Magnificence, may I ask why this matters? The planet has been claimed for Zephyrian colonization." The Empress looked at Emma Morrison on her screen again. The little girl had fallen asleep holding her drawings, but tears were still running down her cheeks. "It matters because I have made a decision that will surprise you, Commander. I want Jake Morrison brought to this ship." Commander Thorne nearly dropped his datapad. "Your Magnificence, Jake Morrison is dead. He was on Earth when the sterilization began." "Are you certain of that, Commander?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Commander Thorne realized that his Empress was not asking if Jake Morrison should be dead. She was asking if anyone had actually confirmed that he was dead. "I will order the scans immediately, Your Magnificence." While the flagship's powerful sensors began examining Earth, Jake Morrison was indeed still alive. He was deep underground in what used to be the New York subway system. The tunnels had protected him and about 60 other humans from the plasma bombardment that had destroyed the surface. Jake had found the other survivors on the day after the transport ships left. They called themselves the Last Watch because they had chosen to remain and witness Earth's final hours. But those final hours had stretched into days as they discovered that the underground tunnels provided unexpected shelter. Dr. Susan Clark was among the survivors. She was a scientist who had refused to evacuate because she wanted to study the Zephyrian technology. Ben Rogers was there too. He was a former space pilot who had stayed behind to help coordinate any rescue missions that might come. The group had managed to seal off sections of the tunnel system and create a small but livable space. They had emergency supplies, working lights, and even some communication equipment that Ben had salvaged from the spaceport. The surface radiation levels are dropping faster than expected, Dr. Clark reported to the group. The Zephyrian sterilization beams seem to break down quickly in Earth's atmosphere. Jake was sitting in a corner writing in a notebook he had found. He was writing letters to Emma, even though he knew she would never read them. It helped him feel like she was still close to him. "Jake," Ben Rogers called out. "You need to see this." Ben was monitoring the communication equipment when strange signals started coming through. At first they sounded like random static, but then patterns emerged. The signals were scanning beams, searching the planet's surface. "Someone's looking for something down here," Ben said. "These scans are too detailed to be routine." Dr. Clark studied the signal patterns on Ben's equipment. "These are Zephyrian frequencies, but they're not military scans. These look almost like medical sensors." Jake looked up from his notebook. For the first time since Emma left, he felt a small spark of hope. Could they be looking for survivors? "I don't know," Ben admitted, "but someone up there wants to find out if anyone's still alive down here." High above them, the sensors aboard the Stellar Dominion had detected the heat signatures of living humans in the underground tunnels. The scans showed not just Jake Morrison, but dozens of other survivors as well. Commander Thorne brought the results to Empress Kyara Vex with amazement in his voice. "Your Magnificence, you were correct. We have detected 63 living humans in the underground tunnel systems beneath the former city of New York. One of them matches the biometric profile of Jake Morrison." The Empress felt something she hadn't experienced in many years. It was satisfaction, mixed with anticipation. "Excellent, Commander. Prepare my fastest scout ship immediately." "Your Magnificence, the surface is still contaminated with sterilization residue. It will be at least another 12 hours before the area is safe for landing. Then we have 12 hours to prepare. I want Jake Morrison brought to this ship alive and unharmed." Commander Thorne hesitated. "Your Magnificence, may I ask what you intend to do with this human?" The Empress looked at Emma Morrison sleeping in the medical bay, then at the data about Jake Morrison surviving against impossible odds. "I intend to reunite a father with his daughter, Commander, and in doing so, I believe I may learn something that could benefit the entire Zephyrian Empire." "I don't understand, Your Magnificence." The Empress smiled, which was a rare and slightly frightening sight. "You will, Commander. You will." Jake Morrison woke up in a room unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls showed moving pictures of distant galaxies and nebulas. The bed adjusted itself to his body shape automatically. Soft music played from somewhere he couldn't see. For a moment, he thought he might be dreaming. Then he remembered the Zephyrian soldiers finding him in the subway tunnels. They had called his name in perfect English and told him to come with them. When he refused, they had used some kind of sleep weapon on him. The last thing he remembered was seeing Ben Rogers and Dr. Clark trying to wake him up as the aliens carried him away. Jake sat up quickly and looked around the room. It was clearly a prison cell, but the most comfortable prison cell anyone could imagine. There was a table with fresh food, a chair that seemed to be made for human size, and even a bathroom area behind a privacy screen. But what caught his attention was the large window on one wall. Through it, he could see space and stars. And docked, Nearby was a ship he recognized, the New Hope, the transport that had carried Emma away from Earth. Jake rushed to the window and pressed his hands against the cool surface. Emma was somewhere on that ship, so close he could almost reach her. His heart began beating faster as hope and fear fought inside his chest. "Your daughter is no longer on that vessel." Jake spun around. Standing in the doorway was the most impressive being he had ever seen. The alien was tall and powerful, with skin like polished metal and eyes that glowed bright purple. She wore a uniform that spoke of absolute authority. "Who are you?" Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew. "I am Empress Kiara Vex, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire. And you are Jake Morrison, the human who chose certain death over abandoning his child." Jake straightened his shoulders and met her gaze. "Where is Emma? What have you done with her?" The Empress stepped into the room. Despite her intimidating appearance, she moved gracefully and didn't seem threatening. She gestured to the wall, and suddenly it showed images of Emma in what looked like a medical facility. "Your daughter is in my personal medical bay receiving the best care my empire can provide. She has been unwell since your separation." Jake watched the screen showing Emma lying in a bed too large for her small body. She looked thin and pale. Alien medical equipment surrounded her, but she seemed to be sleeping peacefully for the first time since he had last seen her. "She's sick because of me," Jake said quietly. "Because I left her alone." "Actually, she is sick because she refuses to believe you are gone. Even when faced with impossible circumstances, she maintains faith that you will return for her." The Empress moved to stand beside Jake at the window. Her purple eyes studied his face carefully. "In my 200 years of rule, I have relocated 47 different species from their homeworlds. I have seen every type of response to loss and separation. Parents who abandon children to save themselves, children who forget their families within days of separation. But I have never encountered anything like your species' capacity for hope in hopeless situations." Jake looked at the Empress with confusion. "I don't understand what you want from me." The Empress waved her hand and the wall display changed. Now it showed Emma's drawings, dozens of them, all depicting the same scene of Jake waving goodbye to her ship. "Your daughter creates these images constantly. She draws you standing against impossible odds, facing certain death, yet still projecting strength and love toward her. My medical staff finds it remarkable that a child so young can maintain such detailed memories and emotional connections." Jake felt tears starting in his eyes as he looked at Emma's artwork. Each drawing showed his final moments with her, but through her eyes, he looked brave and strong instead of heartbroken and terrified. "She draws what she needs to see," Jake said softly. "Not what actually happened. Perhaps. Or perhaps she sees something in you that you don't see in yourself." The Empress moved away from the window and sat in a chair that appeared from the floor. Jake had never seen technology that responsive before. "I have studied your military record, Jake Morrison. Your defensive innovations during our invasion were impressive. The barrier shields you designed protected human cities weeks longer than our projections indicated. Your communication jammers disrupted our coordination in ways we had not anticipated." Jake shrugged. "I was just trying to buy time for the evacuation ships." "Exactly. You fought not to win, but to give others a chance to escape. This is tactical thinking that my strategists struggle to replicate. We are trained to fight for victory or dominance. Humans appear to fight for each other." The wall display changed again, this time showing star charts and battle formations that Jake didn't recognize. "My empire faces a threat that conventional military strategy cannot defeat. An ancient enemy called the Void Reapers has returned to this galaxy. They are machines that consume entire star systems to fuel their expansion. We have lost 12 colonies to them in the past year." Jake studied the battle reports on the screen. The Void Reapers seemed to use overwhelming force and numbers to crush their enemies. Their tactics were efficient but predictable. You're fighting them like they're an army, Jake observed. But they're not soldiers. They're more like a disease or a natural disaster. The Empress leaned forward with interest. Explain. You can't defeat a hurricane by fighting it directly. You have to understand its patterns, predict where it's going, and protect what's important while it passes. These Void Reapers seem to follow similar patterns. They attack the strongest targets first because those provide the most resources. Jake pointed to several battles on the display. Look, every time you mass your forces to defend a major colony, they attack it directly and win through superior numbers. But what if you made the major colonies look abandoned while hiding your real population centers in places they wouldn't expect? The Empress studied the tactical suggestions Jake was making. His approach was completely different from anything her military commanders had proposed. You would sacrifice major installations to save civilian populations? If that's what it takes, the goal isn't to hold territory. The goal is to keep people alive until you can find a permanent solution. The Empress stood up and walked back to the window. She was quiet for several minutes while she considered Jake's words. Your species continues to surprise me, Jake Morrison. Even facing extinction, you think first about protection rather than revenge. That's what parents do, Jake said simply. We protect what matters most. The Empress turned to face him with an expression he couldn't read. I have a proposition for you, Jake Morrison. In exchange for your service as a strategic advisor in our war against the Void Reapers, I will grant your species something unprecedented in Zephyrian history. Jake waited for her to continue. I will restore Earth to full habitability and grant humanity equal membership in the Zephyrian Empire, not as subjects or refugees, but as partners. Your people will have the same rights and opportunities as any Zephyrian citizen. Jake felt his breath catch. Earth could be saved. Humanity could have a future among the stars instead of struggling to survive in distant colonies. And if I refuse? The Empress's purple eyes grew cold. Then Earth remains a dead world and your daughter grows up as a refugee with no home to remember. Jake looked at Emma's drawings on the wall display. In every picture, she had drawn him as someone strong and brave, someone who would do anything to protect her. There's something else, isn't there? Something you haven't told me yet. The Empress smiled, and Jake realized it was the first time. He had seen her show any warmth. Very perceptive, yes, there is more. My scouts discovered that you were not the only human who survived Earth's sterilization. 62 others remained in the underground tunnels with you. Among them are some of your species' most brilliant minds. The wall display showed images of Dr. Clark, Ben Rogers, and the other survivors. Dr. Susan Clark's research into alien technology could prove invaluable against the Void Reapers. Ben Rogers' piloting skills exceed even Zephyrian standards. Your last watch represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. Jake began to understand the full scope of what the Empress was offering. You don't just want me as an advisor, you want to study how humans think and fight. I want to learn from your species' greatest strength. You don't just fight to survive. You fight for each other, even when survival seems impossible. That kind of determination could be the key to defeating an enemy that feeds on despair and destruction. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he heard a small voice from the wall display. Daddy? Emma had woken up in the medical bay. She was looking around confused and calling for him. Jake pressed his hand against the window as if he could reach through it to touch her. Can I see her before I give you an answer? The Empress nodded. Of course. After all, this entire negotiation is about reuniting a father with his daughter. As they walked toward the medical bay, Jake realized that his decision to save Emma by giving up his seat on the transport had somehow led to a chance to save not just her, but all of humanity. The Empress had been right about one thing. Humans did fight for each other, even when it seemed hopeless, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. Jake Morrison ran into the medical bay and dropped to his knees beside Emma's bed. His daughter's eyes went wide when she saw him, as if she couldn't believe he was real. Daddy! Emma threw her small arms around his neck and held on tight. I knew you would come for me. I knew it! Jake held her close and felt tears running down his face. She was so thin and fragile, but she was alive, and she was in his arms again. "I'm sorry I took so long, sweetheart," he whispered. "Daddy's here." "Now!" Emma pulled back to look at his face. "I drew pictures of you every day. I told everyone you were coming, but they said you couldn't. But I knew they were wrong." Jake looked at the drawings scattered around Emma's bed. In every single one, she had drawn him as a hero standing strong against impossible odds. She had never drawn him as someone who was scared or dying. To her, he was simply someone who would always find a way to come back to her. "Your pictures helped me find you," Jake told her. "Even when everything seemed hopeless, I remembered that you were waiting for me." Empress Kyara Vex watched the reunion from the doorway. Dr. Kess, the Zephyrian healer, was taking readings from her medical equipment. "Remarkable," Dr. Kess said quietly to the Empress. "The child's vital signs are improving rapidly. Her stress hormones are dropping to normal levels for the first time since she arrived." "The power of hope realized," the Empress observed. "When faith is rewarded, it becomes strength." Emma noticed the tall alien watching them and hid behind Jake's shoulder. "It's okay," Jake told her gently. "This is Empress Kyara Vex. She's the one who brought me to you." Emma peeked out at the Empress with curious eyes. "Thank you for finding my daddy." The Empress stepped forward and knelt down to Emma's level. When she spoke, her voice was softer than Jake had heard before. "Your father is a very brave man, Emma Morrison. He gave up everything to make sure you were safe." "I know," Emma said, with the simple confidence of a 6-year-old. "Daddies always protect their kids. That's what they do." The Empress looked at Jake with new understanding in her purple eyes. She was beginning to see what made humans different from every other species she had encountered. "Emma," Jake said carefully, "I need to talk to the Empress about some important things. Can you stay here with Dr. Kess for a little while?" Emma looked worried. "You're not leaving again, are you?" "Never again," Jake promised. "I'll be right down the hall and I'll come back very soon." Emma nodded and settled back into her bed, clutching one of her drawings. Dr. Kess began offering her some food, and this time Emma actually seemed interested in eating. Jake followed the Empress to a nearby conference room. Through the windows, he could see stars and the distant shape of other ships in the Zephyrian fleet. "Your daughter's recovery is remarkable," the Empress said. "My medical staff has never seen anything quite like it." "Children are stronger than most people think," Jake replied. "They just need something to believe in." The Empress activated a large display screen that showed detailed information about the Void Reaper threat. Jake could see star maps marking destroyed colonies and projected attack patterns. "I need your answer, Jake Morrison. Will you help us fight this enemy?" Jake studied the information on the screen. The Void Reapers had already destroyed millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Their advance toward the core systems of the galaxy seemed unstoppable. "Before I answer, I need to know something. What happens to the other humans who survived on Earth? My friends in the underground tunnels? They will be rescued and offered the same choice you face. Work with us as equals, or be relocated to refugee colonies as originally planned." Jake thought about Dr. Clark, Ben Rogers, and the others. They had all chosen to stay behind for their own reasons, but they shared the same human stubborn refusal to give up hope. "They'll want to help," Jake said, "but they'll want guarantees that Earth will truly be restored, not just turned into another Zephyrian colony." The Empress touched a control on the display, and the screen showed images of Earth taken just hours ago. The planet looked dead and brown, but Jake could see Zephyrian ships beginning to work on the surface. "Restoration has already begun," the Empress revealed. "My terraforming crews are neutralizing the sterilization effects and replanting the biosphere. In 5 years, Earth will be more beautiful than it was before the invasion." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. You started the restoration before I agreed to help you? I started it the moment I realized what your daughter's drawings meant. She drew pictures of hope because she inherited that trait from you. And if humans can maintain hope in the face of certain death, then they have something my empire needs desperately. The Empress walked to the window and looked out at her fleet. The Void Reapers feed on despair, Jake Morrison. They target civilizations at their weakest moments and consume them entirely. My military commanders think like conquerors. They seek victory through superior force and strategy. But the Void Reapers cannot be conquered. They can only be outlasted. Jake began to understand what she was really asking of him. You want humans to teach your people how to fight without expecting to win, how to protect what matters instead of trying to dominate everything. Exactly. Your species has something we lack. The ability to sacrifice for others, to maintain hope in hopeless situations, and to find strength in protecting the weak rather than destroying the strong. The display screen changed to show tactical simulations of battles against the Void Reapers. Jake could see immediately where Zephyrian forces had made mistakes by trying to fight conventionally. These machines feed on large energy sources, Jake observed. Every time your fleets mass together for a major battle, you're giving them exactly what they want to consume. Our strategists have reached the same conclusion, but they cannot develop effective alternatives. Their minds are trained for conquest, not survival. Jake pointed to several locations on the star map. What if you stopped trying to hold territory and started thinking about mobile defense? Small, fast groups that can evacuate populations and strike at Void Reaper supply lines. Hit and run tactics? More than that. Guerrilla warfare combined with humanitarian operations make it impossible for them to predict where your people are while constantly disrupting their ability to harvest resources. The Empress studied Jake's suggestions with growing excitement. This was exactly the kind of thinking her empire needed. There is one more thing you should know, the Empress said. The Void Reapers are not just mindless machines. They are controlled by an ancient, artificial intelligence that learns from every battle. It has already adapted to most of our conventional tactics. Jake felt a chill as he realized the full scope of the threat. How long do we have? Our projections suggest that the Void Reapers will reach the core systems of both our empires within 2 years. After that, they will have enough resources to spread throughout the entire galaxy. Jake looked back toward the medical bay where Emma was recovering. In 2 years, she would be 8 years old. If they failed to stop the Void Reapers, she would never get the chance to grow up and see the restored Earth. I'll help you, Jake said. But I have conditions. The Empress nodded. Name them. Full citizenship for all humans in your empire, not just the survivors from Earth. The refugee colonies get the same rights and opportunities as any Zephyrian world. And my daughter comes with me wherever this war takes us. Agreed. But you should know that this alliance will change both our species forever. Humans will gain access to technologies and opportunities beyond your current imagination. But Zephyrians will also be changed by exposure to human ways of thinking. Jake smiled. Maybe that's exactly what both our species need. The Empress extended her hand in a gesture she had learned from studying human customs. Jake shook it, and in that moment, the fate of 2 civilizations was decided. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a joint human-Zephyrian warship, watching as the first combined fleet prepared for battle against a Void Reaper scouting force. Emma was safely on Earth, playing in restored forests with other human children while attending school with young Zephyrians. The tactical approach Jake had developed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of massive fleets trying to destroy the enemy, small, fast groups evacuated threatened populations while disrupting Void Reaper operations. Human creativity combined with Zephyrian technology was proving devastatingly effective. Incoming. Transmission from Earth, Commander Thorne reported. He had become one of Jake's closest allies in the combined fleet. On the main screen, Emma's face appeared. She was holding a new drawing, but this one was different from all the others. Instead of showing Jake waving goodbye, it showed humans and Zephyrians working together among the stars. "Hi, Daddy. Look what I drew in school today. It's you and Empress Kyara Vex saving everyone." Jake smiled at his daughter's artwork. Emma had drawn him and the Empress standing side by side, protecting a group of mixed human and alien families from dark mechanical shapes in the background. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. You're getting really good at drawing hope." Emma giggled. "Ms. Clark says that hope is the most important thing to draw. She says it's what makes humans special." Dr. Susan Clark appeared in the background of the transmission. She had become one of Earth's leading experts on Void Reaper technology and was working closely with Zephyrian scientists.